Very easy. Rinse everything off. And then, of course, you can rinse the juicing containers. And then the pulp, people always ask me, can you do anything with the pulp? Well, you can. You can take wheatgrass juice and wet the pulp, and you can actually put this in a bandage and put the bandage over a skin lesion or a bug bite or moles, any kind of a skin problem, and put it on topically, and you can heal all kinds of skin problems with that. Normally I just compost it, but sometimes I will use it as a poultice. And that's all there is to cleaning it. Sometimes I will take the motor, and this motor is sealed around in this area here. And so a lot of times I'll take it over the sink and I'll spray that out and shake it a little bit. It's okay to do that if you get juice backing up into there. Normally you won't get juice in there, but if you do, then that's all you got to do. And that's cleaning the juicer. The first thing we're going to make is called Ken's Green Drink. It's a green drink that I came up with years ago, and I wanted something that was very detoxifying. So this has a lot of parsley in it. It's got kale in it, which is very high in calcium and protein. It's got red bell peppers and tomatoes in it for taste, and it's got cucumber in it to provide a lot of liquid. And so before we get started making it, though, I want to show you a little bit about the equipment that I'm using. This is the Solo Star juicer that I mentioned before, and this is a wood bamboo cutting board. I prefer using wood cutting boards over plastics and synthetics and glass. I've had all of those, and glass cutting boards and hard cutting boards tend to dull your knives, and the plastics and rubbers tend to warp, and I've just never been happy with any of them except for the wooden boards. Rock maple is also a very good board. I like them good and thick so that they don't warp from use, because if you get thinner ones, they will warp just from chopping on them. And occasionally it's a good idea to oil them with some coconut oil. The board manufacturers tell you to oil them with mineral oil, but mineral oil is toxic and I don't like using it, so I prefer to use coconut oil. Also, underneath the board, I like to use one of these non-slip rubber mats that you can get in any department store, discount stores. It makes the board stay in place, and it also keeps it quiet when you're cutting. So there's just two little tricks that I like to do. Now, the first thing we're going to do is show you how to cut a red bell pepper. And there are several different ways to do that. The technique that I like to use is pretty simple. Just cut the red bell pepper right down the middle. And what I do is I take the stem and just pop it out like a button, toss it off to the side, and I compost all of my scraps. And pop that out. And then I'll pull out some of the white interior and compost that. And then normally I'll just rinse these off and get rid of the seeds, okay? And in this recipe, I use 2 red bell peppers. Now another technique that some people like to use for cutting open a red bell pepper is to cut down like this around the sides, and that leaves the inside with the seeds and everything intact, and then cut down like this, and then you can snap off the top. And this is kind of a strange shaped one, but normally if you have a regular shaped red bell pepper, it'll pop right off. But I'm not very good at that technique. I like using my technique. But at any rate, you take 2 red bell peppers, cut them into slices. And actually, it's a good idea not to scrape your knife across the cutting board like I was just doing. Cut those into slices. We take 2 tomatoes, and we cut them up into slices that we can run through the juicer. These are pretty thick tomatoes, so I'm going to cut them up a little more. And normally when you're juicing, when you're doing this juice or any juices, the soft stuff will go through the juicer slower than stringy stuff like greens or harder things like carrots. So typically what I do is alternate the soft stuff through the juicer with the harder stuff. I'm going to take 2 cucumbers. That's 2 red bell peppers, 2 tomatoes, 2 cucumbers, a bunch of kale, and a bunch of parsley. And I'm going to take the cucumber and just cut it into quarters lengthwise so that it'll feed through the juicer chute. Okay. And it's always a good idea to have a sharp knife because a dull knife is actually more dangerous than a sharp knife. All right. I've got the cucumbers cut, and I've got some parsley here, and we're going to use what would normally be a bunch of parsley when you buy it from the grocery store. This is more than that, but I'm just going to grab about a bunch. So we turn our juicer on, and we just feed the cucumber down through the juicer. And normally, I just shove this stuff on down with the feeder with plunger. And you can see the pulp comes out the end of the juicer, and the juice comes out of the front here. And one container of this is about 24 ounces, 20 ounces, somewhere around there. And normally, just for myself, this recipe makes enough juice for 2 people. Normally for myself, I'll make this for my wife and I. So if you're going to just do this for one person, you can cut it in half, or you can drink twice as much. All right, we got our cucumbers through there. And normally when I do this, I'm pretty quick with this. I just shove this stuff on down through, and in the morning, from start to finish, it takes about 30 minutes between cleaning the produce, cutting it, setting up the juicer, and cleaning the juicer, everything. It takes about 30 minutes to make it not bad. I'll feed some of the red bells through. Shove it on in there. You don't have to be dainty with it. And when your juicer cup starts to fill up, you can turn the juicer off. And you notice I've got a paper towel underneath this to catch any drips. And I just slide the pulp cup over for a moment, and I pour it into a larger container. And I go back to juicing. All right, I'm going to cut this up a little bit more. All right, back to the juicing. I have seen amazing results with this green drink on myself and other people. I have people come to my workshops, and I tell them about this juice, and they go home and they make it, and the next thing you know, I get a phone call from somebody saying, oh, I had this problem, I had that problem, and it went away, just in a few days after doing this drink. It's very alkalizing to the body. It's very high in chlorophyll. Parsley is well known for pulling heavy metals out of the body. And also, it's very high in protein. One of the things that people often think is that on a vegetarian diet you can't get enough protein. And of course, that raises the question of first of all, how much protein do we need, and how does the body really get protein? And as it turns out, when you're eating meat, the body is actually breaking the meat down into amino acids that the body can use, and then reassembling it into proteins. And so with plant material, the amino acids are already there. The plant protein doesn't have to be broken down the way that meat does. So you're actually getting the amino acids in a much easier format to assimilate and build protein. So actually, with a vegetarian diet, and particularly raw vegetarian diet, you get plenty of protein eating greens and sprouts. And so you're getting a significant amount of protein in this drink. I would say, from what I understand, this drink has more protein than most Americans get in about 3 days. So you're getting plenty of protein in this stuff through amino acids. So we've got the soft stuff through. I'm going to run the kale through and just fish it on through there. And one thing I do is snap it off, and I'll just shove it on in and snap it and shove it. You can get pretty quick with this. Just let it grab it, push it in, snap it off, shove it in, and just feed it on down there. You don't want to push too much through at one time, because that's where you'll get clogging. Just shove it on in there, snap it off. I kind of hold it in there with the plunger when I snap it off. And you can see the greens don't put out a lot of juice, but they put out a very, very dense green juice. And it's very concentrated chlorophyll. So just shove it on in there. There you go, get on in there. And last, we add some parsley. And this is a whole lot of parsley here, but with this recipe, you want to add about a bunch of parsley from the grocery store, what would normally be a bunch, which, you know, would be about this much right here, I would say. And so we're going to feed that through, and that'll be the last bit of it for the green drink. So, and I just shove this stuff through. I'm going to tuck it in there. Shove it on in. More shoving. And again, you don't have to worry about breaking the juicer. It's pretty robust, and you can push it on down there. You don't want to grab too much at one time, because it'll just get stuck in the bottom, and it'll be difficult to get it through. But I kind of push it in with my fingers, and then I push it on through with the plunger. There we go. Take the juice. I'll slide a pulp bucket over there and pour that in there. Now that's some serious chlorophyll there. And it may not look like much, but I'll tell you what, that is some dense stuff. Now, let's stir it up. Now you look at this and you say, oh my God, that looks terrible. That is so dark green. That just looks, it doesn't look very appetizing, but I'll tell you, it actually tastes a lot better than it looks. It tastes pretty decent, and it's extremely detoxifying to the body. And of course, if you want a less of a green taste, you can add more cucumber, more red bell pepper, more tomato. But this is how much I drink every day, and it's really wonderful. So, cheers. It's actually really good. Okay, now we're going to make a drink called Ken's Cute Cooler, which is a nice summertime drink. It's mainly cucumber juice. It's got lime and mint in it, and you can even sweeten it with a little stevia. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a great drink when you're thirsty and hot in the summertime. It's a great drink really anytime. But at any rate, what we do is start out with 2 medium to large cucumbers, and I've cut them into quarters to run them through the juicer. We've got several sprigs of mint.